Hey guys, YIELDS here. Today we're going to be going over the portfolio for the week. So to start off, take a look at the week view for the S&P. So you can see here, honestly, quite red, I'd say. A lot of it is red. Despite that, I believe you can see here that the benchmark, aka S&P, was actually up for this last week, despite the red. So there were some big hitters here. And before I forget, there are NVIDIA earnings, I think, this Wednesday. So that's going to be very interesting because I'm sure that's going to shift. Because that's obviously such a large company, if that fails earnings, again, we're going to see probably a pretty reactive market. Same thing is true, though. I feel like in terms of the upside, if NVIDIA has good earnings, like we're going to obviously have a good week, but the delta between a good earnings cycle and a bad earnings cycle, I think, is a lot. Meaning, right, like I think if we have a good earnings cycle, we're going to rally, but not that much. Whereas if we have a bad earnings cycle on NVIDIA, I think the market's going to, like, I wouldn't say overreact, but it's going to react very hard. So we will see on how that's been doing. I have no insight on that, to be honest. I haven't really looked too much into it, but yeah. Going into the portfolio for the week, though, we can see here for us we are down 0.65%. We're around $400. You can see we are losing quite a bit to SPY there, and then even more, or not even more to QQQ, but um, you know that we are still losing to QQQ here. Um, so that's that. In terms of each individual one, you can see here on Composer, we lost quite a bit this last week. And the reason for that is just that UVXY/VIX product placement. And essentially, we just keep taking trades with this. And it's because the market is so overbought right now, according to our algorithms, that we keep going into these volatility products, yet nothing comes through. It's been pretty even, honestly. Some days it goes up, some days it goes down. So honestly, I'm kind of interested in looking into that because since the backtest has been a thing, all of that data prior to 2018 is actually quite different. And even after that, we've seen this. I've seen this trend in the Discord I'm in as well, has noticed that UVXY, again, or the VIX products have been seemingly been working differently, is what I should say, as time goes on. So our bets that we're placing on those aren't very well equipped. Now, there is a very safe option against this, which is essentially just going into Bill. Um, you know, but the only issue is that's more of a security measure, whereas we're not going to get any gains from that. But I can imagine that would actually bring down our drawdown potentially and or our volatility. I'd definitely almost say volatility is going to be affected. And we could take a look at that in a second. But M1 Finance, we're down not too bad actually. About 0.19. That's actually above QQQ, fortunately. And then Webull, we're actually up. So yeah, that's the on Webull. That was the MSTZ position. So you can see here in terms of the monthly performance, we are currently sitting at for May, just honestly barely positive, not a whole lot going on there. But for the year, so far, we're almost up to 15%, so that's pretty awesome. You can see here, though, all it took is one good month. We've had pretty bad months, honestly. And then you bring in April, and, we had a 13% month, which is just crazy. So, and then last but not least, I did make a change here. I'm trying out this new little calendar widget thing. The idea here is we can get this kind of table view, but more condensed. I have some updates that I'd like to make to it, such as making the colors different. But you can see here, because I've seen this in stuff like TradeZilla, for example, where you can see your trade calendar and what days you were positive and what days you were negative. So I've added that there. I do, like I said, want to change maybe the intensity of the color, if that makes sense. You can see here, if you click on one of these dates, such as Friday, it will open this thing. I might have it open up like a modal instead, but it has all of the information that that chart did, just so we can get a more easy to view thing, because the table sometimes is just too much information to look at. So yeah, but moving into these, so real quick, actually I want to do Composer last, just so we can go over that VIX thing. Yeah, look, moving into here, if I go over to each of the sectors, we can see healthcare did pretty well. We can see the highest gainer there was from Eli Lilly. And then moving down into technology, you can see there on Apple. And then on financials, you can see Visa starting to go a little bit up, which is nice. MasterCard still falling behind, unfortunately. But on the opposite side of things, semiconductors, AMD took a big fall. Honestly, I'm not surprised. I think there's just a little bit of mean reversion happening. Part of that, like I said, is just due to it being such high price the last few weeks. So I'm not really that surprised with that one. Real estate, you can see the biggest loss there was AMT. That's still the case, unfortunately. And then consumer discretionary, the biggest loss there was Home Depot, which that's really unfortunate because this one has been falling like crazy. And I will go into that right now. Before we go there, I want to go over the dividends that I've earned. So since the 10th, we've received quite a bit of dividends. Okay, so we first of all, I get 1 cent from the security lending interest, which is nice. I mean, it's not really meaningful, but 1 free cent, if you will. Apple, $2.44. We got one from O Realty Income for $1.84. Morgan Stanley, $3.10. And AbbVie with a massive $12.10. I mean, I say that massive like it's like not that massive, but that's a big dividend. Costco, $1.95. We got Procter & Gamble for $4.90. That's also pretty big. And Morgan Stanley, another one here, for $4. So collectively, Morgan Stanley actually paid out a $7.10 dividend for us. That's pretty crazy. So, and then we go to the holdings here. So sorting highest, you can see AMD still above 200%. Beneath that is Google, and then AVGO. Now, again, if NVIDIA does earnings next week and it's positive, this is going to send the market so much higher, and I'm very glad that's going to happen, and I'll tell you why in a second when we go over the Composer portfolio. Although that could also bring us in a really wonky trade still, because we're really dancing on the line of overbought still. But you can see here how we're doing here. So I think Vertex and AbbVie were negative last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, and now they're back up, which is super nice. We still have, Home Depot here is bleeding, man. Luckily, we didn't have that much money into it, but man, it is down quite a bit on our portfolio at least. AMT as well, and MasterCard as well. Visa is getting so close to going back positive, and Microsoft as well. A lot of these have just been sitting in the red for quite a bit, so. Something worth pointing out also, 18th is tomorrow, so I'm going to configure all of the deposits for tonight. Now, they won't clear, I think, until probably Tuesday or maybe even Wednesday, unfortunately, but they're going to be there. And then on the 20th, I plan to sell out on most of these. I'm hoping I can do that because I believe it's aftermarket. I might get a chance. I guess I'll let it ride potentially with AMD, because that could go one of two ways. That could make us a lot more money or lose us a lot of this 225% gain. Because if NVIDIA falls, the semiconductors for sure are going to fall almost always. So, yeah. Going to Webull here, if we go to the performance here, you can see Monday was 8.6% down. Tuesday was 11.36% up, and then another 6.87% up. Then Thursday went down 10% almost, and then Friday was up 10%. This is such a volatile stock or ETF to hold, so I'm not going to go much more into it, except I'm hoping it goes up. Going into Composer, our current holdings, so we were holding VXX for the entirety of this week, or last week, sorry. But now, going into this week, we are holding 50% TQQQ, 25% SPY, and 25% QQQ, which is super nice. Now, something worth noting here is, like I said, that VXX position. So you'll see here, we got out of it here. So if I come over here and edit the backtest, you're going to notice something. First of all, if we do a backtest here, this is the full range from January 18th, 2018. So we need to keep that in mind, but that's 168%, 49% deviation, and 32% max drawdown. Now, if I come over here and say VXX, replace all with BIL, or BIL, and replace all, and then run this again. First of all, we're going to have to do January 18th. Right here, January 18th, 2018. You can see here that how much that brings down that annualized return. Our max drawdown goes down, I think, slightly, and same with the standard deviation, but you can see how much of a big hit that has actually given us. That being said, you can see year to date how it would have performed, 27% up. Whereas if we look at it currently, I like to look at the back test because, when we're comparing those, we're actually sitting around 21%. So you can see here we could have prevented a little bit of loss, but honestly not that much, right? Like if it was like a 20% difference, I think it would be worth looking into more, but honestly at this rate, I don't know. Now I have heard some people saying use 50% BIL and 50% like VXX or VIX, your VIX product, but I don't know. I'm going to stick with this for now because that's just what the backtest says. Just because we have a bad week does not mean, to give up on it. And honestly, we've seen this stuff in some of the performance anyways, so it's not like it has really changed at all in terms of like straying from its backtest roots, because we have seen weeks like this where it holds VXX and does not do that well. So at the end of the day, it's some sort of a hedge in a way. It's not really guaranteed to go up. But yeah, I believe that is it. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer the money right after this video. Hopefully we can get that 3,500 in here. And yeah, the positive thing is year to date, we're up 16.5% on this, and cumulative return almost 18%. So I'm really happy with our performance so far. Obviously, you had a pretty rocky, if I look here at the total portfolio, go all time. Well, it's kind of hard to see with this chart, but we didn't have the best of times on here. So the good news is we finally landed on something. I will say I have been eyeing a few other strategies, but I think it's just a matter, like one of them is this Blue Horizon fund. It's really similar to our fund. So it's something that I've been eyeing. Like I said, we are up 27% on the back test. This is up 35%. And the reason why is it usually holds like a more diversified view, because the logic here is it's built up of like 5 or so strategies, or like 6 strategies here. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. This is just a wash ale break. The thing is, there's some of these that I just don't really believe in terms of like, some of them I think are a little bit more not overbought, but like for example, this one, 6-day cumulative return is less than 13%. 1-day cumulative return of TQQQ is greater than 6%. To me, some of these checks are just too baked in, right? They're a little overfit. That being said, it doesn't mean, just because they're overfit doesn't mean we can't have good performance, especially because that one's only like 10%. The big ones are the TQQQ, FTLT, and the KLM signal. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something I viewed the last few days because it's honestly done pretty well recently during that VXX week. So you can see here, actually, if I just do, last week, maybe do like here, you can see it's up 2.95% versus ours, which was up, it's down actually, I think, but you can see we're down just barely 0.19% in theory. So you can kind of see what I mean by that. But anyhow, that is it for me, guys. And as always, I wish you guys a wealthy future.